I am absolutely thrilled that Harley has agreed to be with us here today to talk about and demonstrate his phenomenal art. For those of you who perhaps don't know him, I'm going to take an excerpt from the beginning of his book, Harley Brown's Eternal Truths for Every Artist. Harley Brown, a totally dedicated devotee of pastel and occasionally oil portraiture. Harley Brown, a native of Canada, attended the Alberta College of Art and the Camberwell School of Art in London before embarking on a long and arduous struggle to establish himself as professional. Today, he is recognised as one of the most accomplished artists in his field. He has been a member of the National Academy of Western Arts since 1977 and has received from the organisation 5 gold medals, 1 silver medal, and the prestigious Robert Lougheed Award, given by vote of Academy members. He has also been a proud member of the Western Rendezvous of Art since its beginning. Eager to share his knowledge, Harley Brown has, until 1999, conducted hundreds of invariably sold-out workshops and demonstrations in the US and abroad. Be prepared to be inspired. Let's welcome Harley Brown.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Hey, can I say this? I'm so glad you read that because, when we get a little older, our memories get a little fadey. And I'm glad to know that I did a few things. Days of yore.
Days of yore.
I'm quite, but it was it was a great. I have to say, okay. This is once in a while I see a thing come up on the screen that says connection unstable and so on and so forth. But anyway, we're gonna darn well make it happen. I'd love to get some questions from you. And I actually gave myself some questions and things that I asked my mentors. I happen to be lucky enough to get some of the greatest artists as my mentors. Start off. Give me one question right now. Get it going.
So there have been many questions that I've been given, Harley, but let's start with this one. A lot of artists are concerned about developing a new, unique style, one that is distinctive, and yours definitely always has been very recognisable. In your book, you describe it as being true to yourself, and you give wonderful advice on how it is achieved. Could you please tell some of your journey in developing that unique Harley Brown style?
Well, here's the interesting part, and I think this probably is true to people in the arts, is I really don't know, and this is the truth, I really don't know what the Harley Brown style is. And there's a good part of that. I don't see myself with a style. When I started out, I was looking at all the artists. I tried to paint like Rembrandt, or this, that, the other thing. And I was getting all of these so-called styles and approaches from other artists. And I thought, well, if I can paint like them, that's my answer. And as I was learning, this is the best part. Mentors, and they keep feeding things in, like an actor when you're going to acting school, or a dancer, ballet. You're getting things from everybody, and all of a sudden, I guess it was over a period of time, that I wasn't thinking that I'd like to paint like Serov or Feshin or was it Hele, the Hele, that great artist from Australia. He did war drawings. Just a lot of, I wasn't thinking of style. I was developing myself so that people say, well, I can sure tell if it's a Harley Brown. I personally don't look at a painting and say, well, that sure is me. It's like when I talk like me. I don't think about it. So it's a flow. It becomes a flow after a while, but only after you kind of know what you're doing. You have to know the different steps in ballet. You have to know the different nuances in acting. In writing, you have to know the different things that have to happen in writing, and it was over a period of years. But then it became a point where I didn't think of the other artists or think if I'm as good or better or that. And also, I never thought that I had to be better than somebody else. When I was in these shows, art shows, I didn't try to make a painting better than the other. I try to make a painting better than myself, than my own, whatever that is. I try to develop and learn on my own. I guess that's a long drawn out answer.
No, I think it's a wonderful answer. So, in other words, there's really no shortcuts anyway. It's being true to yourself and true to your own vision of how you want to paint and how you express what you want to do. But first of all, equipping yourself with technical know-how.
You let yourself just start pouring onto that paper or that canvas. And that happens when you get the confidence of color, the Munsell color theory, I think, of shapes, shadows, so on. And let me, well, okay, when I show you a few of my pictures, and you may find this interesting, well, let me start out. A painting that I forgot that I did 55 years ago, and I probably charged $200 for it. In those days, I did portraits for 35 bucks a piece. I started off at $5 a piece when I was selling my stuff door to door. Now, Lori, I wonder if you can show that one there of Spartacus. Okay, I'm gonna show you what I was doing way back, and I did it. I think I probably charged $200 or $300. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna show some of my works and what I put into them. But I want to show you first of all. If you get that side view picture up there on this piano, can you see this without reflection on it?
Yes. All good, Harley. Yeah.
Okay, this is a drawing that my dad did for my mother when he was courting her. She loved Ronald Colman. So he did this drawing for her, but he showed it to me when I was about 7 years old. 7 years old I was when I first saw this. This was the reason I decided I was going to be doing that the rest of my life. I was going to be an artist. I decided then, and I never changed. I decided then that I was going to be an artist. 1%. And I can thank my dad for showing me this. And of course, I kept it, and it's in my studio all the time, inspiring me. Anyway, that was 7 years old. And throughout, well, I don't know what other things. Oh, are we still seeing?
Yeah, I can see you.
This is one I did of pigs. This shows that you can paint anything in the world, and everything is worth it. The shapes, what's important is shapes. I will tell you that a fellow friend of mine, can you see me?
Yeah.
A friend of mine named Donald Teague, I saw him and he gave me a lot of good suggestions, and he was one of my elders, and I learned a lot from him. He lived in Carmel. And when I left the house, I left him and I yelled back to him. He died very soon after. I said to him, Donald, I got in the car. I said, give me just something that I can take with me to remember. Say whatever it is. He said one word. And boy, that word was big. He said, design. And we waved goodbye. Design. And I thought about that as I was driving away, and he was right. When you look at any of the great paintings, and you can even go to abstracts, but any of the great paintings, Rembrandt and so on, gosh, I can think of Turner, name the names that you want to, any of them. The Group of Seven in Canada, the great illustrators, Rubens, Van Gogh, Matisse, all of them, they depended on shape and design. And design comes from shape. And he told me that. So somebody can do a perfect face, just a wonderful face. But and it can be done artistically and all of that. But the difference is if it has a design factor around it. And I want to show you a few of those. Not that I'm praising myself at all, but the fact is that if you look at a painting, I remember when I went to a museum and I saw people walking around there, the ones that they slowed down to were the ones that had a dramatic design to them, much like a plot in a movie. Got to be strong. And the same with the book, has to have a reason that that book was written. And with all the arts, there has to be a center, something in the center that that makes that thing worthwhile, I guess, in a human simple terms. And so let me show you. Oh gosh, here's a drawing that I did of my dad. I did this in 1960.
Wow.
I was 21, and that's my great dad, who, it's an ink drawing.
That's wonderful. One of the quotes from your book, Harley, too, is talking about composition. This quote is, "In short, design is where art succeeds or fails."
I think to a great extent. And this is something I learned from a fellow, one of my mentors painted animals. And I'll show you. I have. I spent the fall of many, many years going out with him painting animals. Nobody's ever seen these. And he taught me how the shadows that forms within those animals is part of the design. Well, look at the shadows and the shapes. That was one of the animals. Here's another one. This one sat for me, believe it or not.
He was very helpful.
A very busy day, and he sat for me. And here's another. Now, if that was just a drawing in the middle, but the shading on that, see the shading here? The flatness of it, you know, that kind of gives it some of the drama. Doing this all by itself, doesn't work. It needs to have, and that back is beautiful, the tail, all of those things work with the cast shadows. I love shadows. Let me get rid of this here. Here's an etching that I did in dark. Now that would just be it, but with the shapes going into it, such as down there, big there, lines. It gives movement. The angles is stationary. Angles give movement to a painting. Incidentally,
Put it on your left ear.
okay, we're still working on this. Do I hear? Yep, I hear.
Okay.
And I showed you this one here that I did in 1968 of Spartacus. There's certain parts of it are, but 55 years ago, and I think I probably got $200 or $300 for it. I did this in 1968, 69, something like that. And Spartacus. And the people that bought it, I think it was $200-300 they gave me. And what happened is that they passed away, and they gave me this one in return for doing a portrait of a member of the family. So I had not seen that for half a century and just got it a short while ago. And I honestly, it's got my name on it and that. I can kind of remember doing it and remember that how much I got paid for many months of rent. Rent back then was $40 a month.
Here's another quote from your book, Harley, and I really love this quote. "The art world is littered with the spirits of people who gave up, but you, dear friend, are made of sterner stuff. Right? Never, 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 under any circumstance, give up faith in your ability. Stick with it." And obviously, that is what you have done.
I guess I'm a perfect example of somebody Incidentally, I was kicked out of art school. Fourth year, they actually ushered me out the door because I just wasn't getting what they were teaching. But I went back later and thanked them for giving me an extra year of my life. And I think you almost have to be obsessed in the art world. Everybody says, oh, you don't make a living as an artist. You have to be obsessed, and it cannot be the money, because I felt that I was going to live in an attic and, my life would be just drawing pictures, and I would do them for nothing. I used to actually make a living drawing people in fairgrounds, in bars and saloons, door to door. I have a peddler's license. Door to door, I would do it. My very first one was a profile of a little kid, $1. I saved that dollar, then I had to spend it because for food. But you have to stick to it. Talent is important. I still don't understand talent to a great extent, but talent is very important, I think. But what is more important is I don't think of talent. Don't think, do I have it? I don't know if I have it. Think that you need to draw, paint, visualize what you think and see onto canvas or paper. And there's no doubt, if you understand some of the basic things, and I'll show you a couple, there are certainly basic things in art that if you understand them, such as the Munsell color theory. Take, for instance, up here. Here's one by my alter ego. You'll notice that the most of it is cool, and a little bit, about a fifth of it is red. It would not work if the red was equal to the blue. So you have to have more of one, cool or warm. For instance, the French Impressionists would do a scene with all the cools and, the greens and the blues and so on. Then they would have a little red barn or something like that. Many of the portrait artists would do a portrait, warms and all such things. And then somewhere in there would be not a blue necessarily, but a cool. Over here is another Belanovsky, my alter ego. All of that and then the blue there. Here's one I did for a cover. That's where my anatomy class came in handy at school. There's another Belanovsky there. There's one of mine. That was the last time she ever posed. Is that coming through?
Yeah. Can you hear us still, Lynn?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Now we can, yeah.
And here's a portrait I did of Jesus. And I tell you, this portrait haunts me in a good way, in a very good way. But I almost feel I didn't do it. It just appeared. This portrait here, if somebody offered me $1 million, I promise, would not sell it. This portrait was one of the first I ever did of a young child. And that more than half a century ago, maybe, I don't know, when, way back there when I was starting out. I did this young girl's portrait. And then I remember finishing it off in the studio in the basement. And I remember coming up to turn the lights out and came upstairs. And I felt, my God, I went back down to the studio and I turned the light on so the light be with her. And I couldn't leave her alone in the dark. So that became an obsession. So I brought her upstairs. And when I turned the kitchen light out where I left it, I put her always in my studio. And when I left, I would take her out wherever I went. And I would put her, if we turned all the lights off in the house, then she would be with the lights out then. But she became an obsession. I still have her. It's like she's a member of the family. I know the real girl right now is a grandma. Yeah. Isn't it interesting how those things happen? Here is an oil, one of my rare oils that I did of a skull. And let me tell you that the new Harley that happened to be up here is doing drawings. I'm doing drawings while I'm watching TV and commercials at nighttime. These are all kind of crazy, as you can see.
Harley, one of the questions that I've always wondered on is you've got a strong representation of the Indigenous people, the American Indians. I'm wondering, how did that relationship come about?
That was when I lived in Calgary, Alberta, and we were right near where they lived in the southern area, Sarcee, where they live, in the Stony, where we lived. We're very near to them, but also the Stampede, where they have parades, and the First Nation people would be on the parade, waving to us and so on. So I got really interested in how they looked, and I just started, for no other reason than I just loved to be with them. I used to go out to their homes and start drawing them, and then all of a sudden, some people started buying them, and that's how it started.
Yeah.
Very naturally,
Yes.
very naturally. And I'm sure I brought some of them here with me. I have right here.
Yeah. Just wonderful.
Thank you.
Um,
And then I'll show you more. Here's one of a cowboy, and this also shows you. This one is lighting coming from both sides, and let me tell you, that's when you almost have to really concentrate on where the light comes and how. But it's all in the design too, as you can see, the overall design. And as you see here, it goes down there. Had I filled that in, it would have taken away. But the design part there, light here, but the light here, and when you're doing lights on a subject, make sure you don't do them all equal. Look very closely at your subject. There's areas that are a little slightly darker, slightly lighter. And
On you right now.
Huh?
You can see the shadow in your face right now.
Well, on my face.
Yeah, the light and the dark.
The light and the shadow, and how different the light hitting at the top there, and then up there. But don't make that up there as light. Don't make that as light as that. Parts of the nose, the cheek, not quite as light. I think that's one of the big mistakes that people do portraits. They make them all the same, So you have to very subtle differences. Makes an amazing amount of a difference with the painting that you're doing. Accuracy also. I do believe in accuracy. And if you're making mistakes, fix it right away, or that mistake will kind of go on to the next area. If I made that nose too long, and then that would bring the lips down, so that would make the nose and the lips wrong, and the chin. So make the nose right at the beginning, and the space between the eyes. That sort of thing is so important.
you had another quote from your book too.
Absolutely.
You said, "Why plan to fix it later when you can get it right from the start?"
Yeah. Absolutely. I know how some artists do it, and that's fine, with using the photographs and such. Getting it right from the beginning is exceedingly important. And I've seen some of the great artists at the beginning fussing away, getting those right. But then they use a nice flourish in the background, but they still go back and try to get those first parts right. Whether you're doing a pig, whether you're doing a car, anything that you're drawing, any of the errors that happen stand out to a kid, Incidentally, lost edges. I want to show you. I've got right here. I got stuff here. Let me show you.
Just a little bit of stuff.
Here, right here is a gecko, a Tucson gecko. He came, he visited the house. Is it reflecting? Mm-hmm. Is it okay?
I'm trying to move so it doesn't reflect.
I can turn it up.
There we go.
Okay. Is that okay?
Yep. Yep.
You can see where the lost edge goes right there. Even a child understands a lost edge. The mother coming in the room where parts of the shadow of her face go into the background. The child understands that's where the face is, the shadow goes. In other words, you don't have to have an edge there. You don't have to show, well, there's a side of the face. If it disappears in the background, let it disappear into the background, or the hair. But he was very kind. He didn't stay there too long, but I'll show you here now. Well, you saw this with the face. Oh, here's just for fun. Can you see this well enough?
Yes.
Lost light and shadow there. There's a little bit of reflected light hitting there on the edge. Is that reflecting a lot?
It's good.
The shape. Look at this, the shape in the background. This was down in Peru, and this dog was actually watching the house. He was on the roof of the house, but rather than that, I put a earth. Okay, ask me more questions. I was going to show you something about shapes.
Yeah. Well, would you like us to put on the little video of the drawing of the eye?
If you'd like to.
Yes.
We give people a rest from me.
We're letting you have a little rest, Harley.
No, I'm good.
Well,
If
do you
you'd
want shall we play the eye now? We've shortened it a little bit. We've shortened it somewhat.
Yes. I think we could.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think that may be an idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which one, Daddy?
Which one?
Yeah. Do you want to pause and look at the video?
Oh,
or
yeah.
Do you want to keep talking?
Let me do one more thing while I'm up there.
Okay.
Just this one more thing.
Okay.
Everybody knows who this is. Marlon Brando. I mean, the older ones.
Yeah.
Marlon Brando. As you see, I have two values there, light and dark. If you saw this by itself, you wouldn't know what it was. The same with the shapes there. But when you look at the whole thing, you're seeing light and shadow, shapes made into, that's his face. That's why light and shadow itself is a design. As you can see, the shadow of the forehead, the shadow into the eye, the nose, and so on. If you squint your eye, or just look at it straight on. And here's what I'm telling you. If anybody there who wants to draw a face, I promise you can, or you can improve it or whatever it is in the next few days. Get a photograph of somebody where the light and shadow is very strong, and do the shape of, I'll show you. Let me, very quickly, this will be very fast.
He's in mode.
He's in the mode. Excellent, Laurie. That's wonderful.
This would be very fast. I'll get this. I'm not going to put in the eyeballs or anything like that. Now, this is where it goes down. Put a hat on him. I could give him a mustache.
Yeah, he looks like someone who needs a mustache, a hombre.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Here's the ear goes down there. That goes down there. Then you put the background in there. But you see where it's all shapes. There's anybody can do a shape if you spend your time doing it. It's a little sloppy, but you can put a pipe in the end. There, Wild Bill Hickok.
Yeah.
But you see what I mean? Anybody can draw a shape in like that.
I think often we get terrified because we think we've got to draw an eye, but it's drawing a
Don't
shape.
draw an eye. Don't
It's
draw an eye. Forget forget anatomy. Go for shapes.
Yes.
Shapes. That's why I can do a buffalo or a car or a cat or a dog. A dog there. I don't know anything about the anatomy of a dog, but I sure do know shapes. And
Yes.
that was taught to me by the fellow that does animals, Bob Lockheed. He had a drawing when I was out drawing animals. And he came over and said, this is the first time I had a real butt-kicking lesson. He came over to me and said, that's very good. Very well drawn, Harley. And I thought, well, look at this. You know, he's going to tell all the others how wonderful and brilliant that Brown is. And he said, well, now, could you give me your pencil and let me just show you a couple of things? And he started to lay in the shadows and the shapes that you see with the animal. I was drawing a sheep or something, and the cast shadows, like you see, the cast shadows here. He was showing me how those shadows, as in a Rembrandt and so on, those shadows are what make the work, and the shadows and the shapes.
It's wonderful, Harley, to watch a skilled hand dance around the paper.
Oh, I love that sentence.
Oh, it's a
Well,
good sentence, isn't it?
I love that. Dance around the paper.
Well, that sounds like could be
You
a.
could use it, Laurie. Yeah.
Chapter of a book or something in an
Yeah.
art book.
Anyway, there we are. Maybe shadows under there. And you saw how the eye goes there.
Yeah.
There. But anyway, there's the shapes, as you can see.
Wonderful. While we're talking about various things there, I in your first book, can you hear me, Harley, without echoes?
Absolutely. Perfect now.
Terrific. So in your book, you had two different renditions of Joe. Joe, one on page 40 and one on page 75. Ken's going to put them up here for you. I mean, you know what they look like. No one else does. Ken's just fiddling here.
40 and 75.
Here we are. So this is page 40 and 75. So we've got up page 40, and they're so different. In the page 41, the one that looks more like a normal Joe, It's a very simple palette with dramatic lights and darks where, you know, your design is so wonderful in bringing out the character of Joe. Whilst the other one, the other portrait of Joe there, two different ones, is it's about complex color and with simple values. So can you explain to us the hazards? Are there hazards when using dark, and are there hazards, the hazards of using color, and the things that we need to be aware of when using lots of different colors, because color can overwhelm sometimes, can't it? Instead of being helpful, it can be a hindrance. So just the two different approaches of the same subject.
Well, the first Joe, page 40, that's more of value work, where lights and darks, you know, it's all, and I think it lives on that alone, and of course if you're showing it, the shadows on the face, of course, in the background, that little touch at the top. Now, I'm here to tell you that needs to be up at the top against the white hair, but that dark up there is necessary in the overall design. And the collars, where the one side it goes down further than the other side, they're not equal, gives it movement, of course. But and as you see, the white, it's mostly all around it, it's mostly a mid-tone or a mid-value, you know. And then there's that dark, and then there's the light of the light that hits the face, and then there's that mid-tone or dark mid-tone that hits the shadow side, and then a very touch of the reflected light. But what really, and this is what Rembrandt, many of those did, they would do a portrait of somebody, and I'm glad you mentioned this. They would do a portrait of somebody, and they would do a white collar so that you could see how dark the dark was against the white, and you could see how the value of the skin was against the white. The white kind of gauged. If you look at a Rembrandt, for instance, and put your hand over the white collar, there's a lot, it misses a bit, because that white collar adds an amazing, and generally the white is near the center of interest. The center of interest is crisper. There's a stronger color in the center of interest. There's more detail in the center of it. We see the collar, it's very sharp edge. And then you see out towards the edges of the painting, a little softer edge. Not necessarily, but in a general way. In the other Joe, you have, and this is the one case where it's half cool. The one thing that if you can have a painting that's half cool and half warm, this one is half cool and half warm. Well, it's mostly cool. But this is a case where design is so important. And you see the white collar there, and you see the mid-tone in the background. But the color that you see there, the strongest color, of course, is the red. And that came, let me tell you, that comes after years. You grab the red pastel and you don't hesitate. It flows. All of those hundreds and thousands of things going from the visual into the mind when you're drawing, painting, whatever, and pastel. And so what I did there is I did strong on one side of the red and then a touch of it on the other side. That came naturally. Certain things like that, the color, the dark on the one side, just a bit of it on the other side. But like I say, with the white collar, generally speaking, I don't like two whites the same. If in a case like that, I have the hair a little bit darker. It would have ruined it if I made the hair white, white, white. So I made the hair just a little shade darker so that the eye would hit the white of the collar. I don't know if that explains everything.
No, it does. It does.
Did I go overboard?
No, not at all. But I think too, it's the two different treatments give us a different sense of Joe. in
Yeah.
both ways. Like the first one is of almost just this wonderful, gentle character, whereas here in the more extremes of color with correct values, he's more intense, isn't he? And he's looking
A
out at
little more concerned.
you.
But
Yeah,
you notice also, you can show expression. You'll notice the eyes are in the dark.
yes,
And you still feel the expression
yes.
coming from him. I did one. I know I brought it down here. That it explains just what. Oh my goodness! Here it is, and this will explain to you something. But this is a dear old dog that we had. This will show you. This is done in 3 tones. Now, see if you can get this without reflecting.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. Now, is there a chance? Let me get it in the light here. Is there a chance you can come in close?
Ken? Oh,
All you see are 2 little dots for the eyes. And yet you can feel what's happening in the, do you see the little shine in the eye and then the lower lid?
yeah.
And then
Yes,
of course, lost edges galore. But it shows his expression with those 2 little things. You're able to see it, I guess.
yes, we can see it very clearly.
And it's really 2 values. His name was Bear the Brown. We had him for many years. And I think that's a good example of lost edges, if ever there was a good example of lost edges. And I'll show you another here. Aboriginal. Here's right here. Is that reflecting? Should I put it with more light on it like that?
Better. That's better. Wow.
There. Now you see the blues in there, but with the warm skin. But you notice that the light's there, often right there in the touch of the nose. But don't, if somebody overdoes the lights down there, it will ruin, no matter how well it's done, it will ruin it. It looks false. So you have to really, if there was one thing you walk away with, it's values. Design, of course, but values, that you don't make all of those shines the same. And then of course we have that red. That's the only place where it's really predominant. And then a strong blue. But I found that the side of his face was very interesting with the light against the side of his face, the dark. And this here is a little more straight up and down, but this adds the great drama to it. Without that, you see,
Yeah.
but you show that. And of course, I don't do all the little hairs. I do the shapes, the shape of the hair, and we know it's hair. We know that people understand. Here's another one. This one here is City Eagle. He used to be I remember in the Calgary Stampedes. Can you see that okay?
Yes, yes.
Sitting Eagle, he was unbelievably a strong, very determined person. And he was probably amongst my favorite people of the I think I'm trying to remember if he was on the west side of Calgary. Anyway, showing the softness right here, and then a little more crisp there, shaping there. Not all of the details of the feathers, leaving it here, the red going down there, green. But the face, there's a strong cool up there with the light hitting, and then just a little touch here, not all over. But it's important to get that face, or to get the anatomy, the structure right. And that's where a lot of the artists, the great ones, people that they all say that same thing: go for accuracy. don't go for the artistic thing. You can in certain areas, but there's certain parts that you've got to be very accurate. See, I went kind of certain abstract shapes there.
Yeah, he sits beautifully into his environment, doesn't he? And I think that's with all of your portraits, Harley, the fact that they sit so well in their environment and there's such powerful drawings in amongst it is really exciting to see.
That's nice to hear. I have one more, and then we can do the. Then people can go get a coffee.
He's having fun, Lynn. Thank you.
No. Here I did. Sometimes I'll just do, like just for the fun of it, I'll do the face with blues, you know, and it still works. You know, everybody knows that she doesn't have a blue face, but it still works with the red. So the red against the blue. And then that's what I love when I put that on there. This is a pastel. They're all pastels that you saw. Does that prove it?
It proves it.
Anyway, the greatest joy was putting those yellows in there. And you can sense it. But as you can see, the abstracty work here, I didn't do it would have been wrong had I put the shoulder in there to see. So the fuzz with the hair and so on, and you can see the structure of the face. The teeth are not standing out. They're pushed back just slightly in the shadow part. But I there we go. The face like that, the background like that. So it has movement. Okay, if you want to show the I'm going on here.
You're having fun.
I'm you know, let me when you finish that, I want to show you something. And also I wrote out some questions for myself. How much time have we got?
Oh, we've got heaps. We've still got an hour. So do you want to we'll play have you got one?
This will be kind of like intermission.
Yes, let's have an intermission. You can have a drink of water, I'm sure, or coffee. I'm sure you need it. And let's watch the video of your drawing of the eye for a little bit.
One question: is anybody left?
No one's left, and we've got more people now, and they're all riveted.
Put anybody leaves, put their names down.
Okay.
Can I go?
Yeah, you can have a rest for a minute, Laurie. All right.
Okay, I always start off, well, here, with paper towel. And I'm going to just tone this down. Just tone it down. Just kind of lay in the pastel for starters. People that work with oil do the same thing. And then I look over there and I see what we have. Okay, this is just going to kind of loosely put it in. Okay, this is right in here where the lid goes, right about here. The eye, right about there. The little inside of the eye, right in here. Okay, just kind of getting the gist of it, just the gist, the feel of the of what I'm about to draw. The heavy eyebrow there. So this is a little bit lower.
right there. It goes right about to here with the eye. Then we work in this part right here. I'll get a darker pastel. A darker pastel. Put in this shape here. Art really is putting in shapes. And then up here. Just see the shapes. That's not really eyelashes or eyeball or anything. That's a round shape. And then little lines in here, but they're really not lines. They're just thin shapes. Okay, how far is that over? That's about the width of the iris. There to there. Okay, that's about right to there. And then of course we have the nose coming in here. I'm going to make these. Now I don't put in eyelashes, I just put in kind of jiggly little shapes in there. It's a little darker in the top here. And darker under here. I'm keeping as you can see, I'm keeping the colors rather straightforward, just the warms. Maybe a little cool here and there. I may put a little black right away. I don't generally do this, I wait for the end, but I kind of, something inside me tells me to put in this black. To get, so I know the values that I'm starting to put in. The top part, the shade of the lid there, goes right into the eye. This a little, see, these are the fussy moments to make sure it's correct. The word correct is sometimes, in the art world, it's sometimes not used. We're more arty. Put in the shape of the eyebrow. Now this part goes right above there, right there. Now I'm exaggerating certain things because of the art end. You know, I just want to put a little of myself in there. Notice I use my fingers there. Darken that a little. Lighten this part in here. It's a little bit too light there. Darken this. A little lighter down here. Now that to there, maybe it goes out a little too much. I'll bring that in just a little tad. And I have a nice dark brown here that I'm going to use. With the lashes here. And I don't put in eyelashes, more of just little jiggy shapes. A little more black right here. Put that in right now. We'll lower this here just a bit, right in here. Lower that slightly. So you can see there's a nice wide right in there. A little darker right down here. Get that nice dark brown in here. You really don't have to know a whole bunch of anatomy with these with drawings. You have to know where to put the shapes. Now, if this was a portrait, I'd take a lot more time. Commissioned portrait. Just like I say, with lashes, I don't put lashes in, just like you say, shapes. There. Darker right here. I think I'll bring this part back just a bit. And then always under here, let's bring this down some. A little more black on the side here. That part you fuss. These little parts here. With the eyebrows, you can a little more. A little looser. A little. When I say loose, I mean just a little. Dark right in there. Right in here. A little bit of light right here. Now it's a little crisper right here, and then softer. This area right there, it's soft as it goes up into the upper part of the eye there. As you can see, my little finger does a lot of work of smudging here and there. Soften that a bit right in there. See that line going back there? Or I should say shape. Soften that edge a little right in here. A little darker right here, of course. The lower lashes. Takes a lot of care in there. There are little things I would do, you know, with the finger. Little touches here and there. There. It's not a bad first stage. And really, there's not a whole bunch more. There's, you know, little bits and pieces, which would, to watch them would drive anybody crazy, to watch me doing them. But you see the basic beginning, at least. The beginning part. See little things like here.
Very much, Harley. Yeah, everyone's going, wow, wow.
Bless their souls. You know, here's a little incidental. When I was going to school, one of my fortunate things, some people may not think, was the fact that girls were not impressed with me in high school. And so that gave me a lot of time to do my art. And I want to thank those girls, incidentally, to do my art and to play the piano. I was also playing the piano. I learned the piano. I started at the same time. There's a piano they left here when we moved in. I quit playing seriously in my 20s. They didn't come here to hear me play the piano, did they?
Oh, I think that will be just part of the joy, Harley.
Okay. That's Beethoven. But anyway, when I was, when I was a teenager, when I was my teenage years, I played the piano, and that was really my life, art and music. And I really had sort of dreams of one day playing in one of the great halls and having, the girls come running up to the front, oh, that kind of thing. This was in my teen years. And it was a kind of a hope of mine. And then I started learning I remember I was playing the piano in some lobby somewhere, and this guy who was coming through town said, let me show you a couple of things, Let me show you. Then I started, and this is the truth, I started playing in a brothel, piano. Now, I remember a girl teaching me strike. And then I literally quit playing the piano in my 20s. And so the only thing that I play very... muscle memory is the only thing that keeps me going. Even Dave Brubeck. I quit piano in my 20s, literally. And it became just a memory. Art was everything. Then, any of you that have read my things, I started writing. Lori's not even prepared for this one.
What?
Are you still there with me?
Oh, we're still here with you. Yeah.
Okay. Writing has become something for me as well. Okay. I had here's one if you want. This is to take home with you. I had 3,000 books when we moved. I sold them all when we moved up here to Canada. We sold all 3,000 of them. I kept a few. Now, here's the truth, and I can back this one up. In my lifetime, I have read 2 books. On the Road with Jack Kerouac, wrote it, and The Fountainhead, Ayn Rand. Those are the only 2 books I've ever read. I have not even read my own books. I wrote them out and they're sent them to the publisher, but I have written 4 books and I have not read any of them. So I've read 2 books in my lifetime, even though I had 3,000. You want to talk about absent? What is it? Is it crazy? Now, here's something else. Watch, and Laurie doesn't know this is going to happen. Here's nobody's ever seen any of this. This is just half of my writing.
So that's the newest Harley Brown book?
Well, no, and it's all about life and art that I've seen over the years.
Good Lord, Dad.
and that's half of it. That's half of it. And I won't even,
wow.
I have one here, what happens when I go have a visit with God. And God tells me that I'll give you a deal, Harley. You cross off all of the wasted time you had on earth
and I'll add those to your life. The wasted time, and then we went on and talked about it. And then I said, okay, I'll do all that. Would you promise me one thing? That goes on and on and on. But one of the things I asked a favor, could I have Mona Lisa as one of my models when I go up to heaven? He said, absolutely. He said, Da Vinci is he's kind of stuck on himself. So anyway, some of my chapters are about the heartache. I can tell you now that not selling at a show is no big deal. I have had where all the other guys sold and I didn't. I'll tell you, if you want that confessions book, I'm sorry, but I'm just taking just a couple of minutes of this. The other of me, Belinovsky, who did that abstract up there, and a couple of other abstracts, that was Belinovsky. And he is my alter ego. He also did that. That's my alter ego. Well, he first came into my life when I was working in a basement, selling my stuff for $35 a piece. All of a sudden, I became Belinovsky. I can remember that. It just happened all of a sudden, and it happened. And I started drawing like him, the faces and such. And the dealer that I had, none of the dealers wanted my stuff, so I had a guy that was a janitor. He had a little store, and he turned the store into a little shop had nothing in it. He just used it as office. He turned it into an art gallery dealership because he was the only one that I could find that would, so I talked him into it. And that's when I did the Belinovskys. Well, the Belinovskys started they were selling for twice as much. So $75, mine were 70. So we had a two-man show, Belinovskys and Browns. Well, it turned out that all of Belinovsky's sold for $75 and maybe 4 of mine sold for $35. And some of the people at the show said they knew him personally. I asked, what kind of a guy is he? Well, he's a nice guy. Anyway, now here's something that cannot be beat. I got jealous of Belinovsky. I got jealous. He was selling everything. So I had him leave town with his first wife, Fleur, and he went to Europe. So Belinovsky disappeared from my world. This is a true story. I promise you with all my heart. Then all of a sudden, about 10 years ago, he popped back into my brain. 10, 15 years ago. When I was drawing, all of a sudden, he came back to life. And so that's why you see some of these here are part of him. There's one here. That's a Belinovsky. That's a little bit of, you see a little bit of Harley there. But that's Belinovsky. Incidentally, I wrote myself, if you don't mind, well, what I'm going to do here, forget that for a minute. I'll show you a little bit. Anyway, you saw the eye, how that was done. Here's a profile. And how the backgrounds. I'm not going to do a lot of color, but I did this profile here. And what I generally do, I generally like to see where the top is going to go. And there, this side, and there. But I generally do it all. I do the background while I'm doing the face. I know we don't have time for all of the doings here, but and oftentimes I'll get one of these things here.
What is that?
That's
Paper stump.
yeah. Or I'll get a piece of plastic, what is that, foam plastic that I'll use
Styrofoam.
this too. And sometimes I'll use one of these hard-boiled, I always have kneaded erasers, you know, I always love those babies. And, you know, sometimes you can just throw in color. And incidentally, I use fixative in the first part. Is this showing okay here?
Yes, yes, thank you.
I use a fixative in the first part when I'm doing the first part, but I never use it at the end because with me, it always takes away a little bit of the color.
Yeah.
That I'm trying to. So the first part, so I can lay different things on, I may use fixative. So you can see, maybe you can get a shape of a feather out of the back, but you can see how, well, different colors, like I say, you can put in a blue here. You can see me fussing.
Fussing's okay sometimes.
It is. Absolutely. See, I work all over. I do the fussing in there, and then use my finger too.
Pushing those values makes such a difference, doesn't it? It brings out more volume and form and life.
Absolutely. And I do love, like I say, I started off doing oils, and then pastels, whoa, you just grab and do.
Yeah.
And a plus is that you can send it off the next day.
Yes.
Incidentally, I don't have the model here, but I don't try to do things out of your head. An artist should not. They should either have the model there or the photograph there, because if you try it out of your head, you'll go into some kind of a guessing game where the light is or isn't, and you make it maybe too much this or too much that. So always go to the source. Now, this is something I learned from many of the masters that I learned from. But anyway, this gives you an idea of you know, where's that yellow? But you can see that, you know, starting to.
But in putting all those wonderful colors in that you do, Harley, you're still considering their value, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
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 Not just color for color's sake.
Absolutely. I'll show you. In fact, I'll show you. Oh, wait, now. Here, let me show you, if I may. This is when I was doing them portraits for $20 a piece. This is 1967.
Oh.
1967.
Oh.
This is the same year.
Yeah.
Now this one here. Oh, this is 1964. This is when I lived in England. Now that's on velour, believe it or not.
It's a different look,
Velour.
isn't it, velour? Gives a different feeling.
Yeah, it does. 64. I went to England because I read in a newspaper that Londoners are eccentric. And because of those 3 words, I took the family to England to live forever. That's what kind of it. I want you to know, part of my personality changed when I was 19 in because not enough time, in a 1/2 hour incident, my personality changed for 15 years. It happened in 1/2 hour moment. My personality changed back in another 1/2 hour when I was about 15 years later. So 15 years, I was a different person. Before then, rather aloof, shy, and so on. In that 15 years, I was the eccentric of all time history. And then after that, because of another incident, I went back into my shy sort of thing. And that's when I really, and luckily, artists got a hold of me that I had never heard of, or that I heard of, but I never knew them. They got a hold of me and we started painting together. And that became a whole different world. When I was in my mid-30s on up, I really learned. But that 15-year period, incidentally, in my confessions book, there was a person in the movie business said, we got to make a movie out of this. So they sent my book, confessions book, to a big producer, read the book, got back to me. I wanted John Malkovich or somebody to play me. Yeah, I was all ready. Yeah. They sent back and said, Mr. Brown, your life is much too bizarre and nobody would believe it. So there goes my movie career. Here's what you do. Here. Then you go into this. From that other, there, and then the different person right there. All the colors in the world. And that's a perfect example of what you say. It doesn't matter what color you use as long as the value is right. Is that showing up there?
Perfectly, Daddy.
Yes, perfect.
Now, here's where this may be interesting. Here's where you use the sensitivity of doing a child's portrait. Doing a child's portrait. Here, you don't have, just do the middle one. And you know who that is?
Yes. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you. And here's one. Here is a very typical Balanovsky. And I've gotten permission from him to show these. And this I shall show you. Balanovsky has not sold his pictures. He does not want to ever sell them. But then here's another typical Brown. Now here's where Brown went crazy. As you can see, it all flowed from me, all of the different colors and so on. I sometimes, and this is the way it is with my writing, with the piano, with my art, I just don't care. I let it happen. And so I didn't care. I do it for me. I dropped it for me, not for a gallery, not for a show. I do it for me. I know that sounds egotistic, but it's the only way to do it. You do it to make yourself, fulfill yourself. Here's a girl that posed many, many times in Scottsdale, Kathleen.
Yeah.
And here's a little old lady that decided that she would pose.
Cool. She's so cute.
Cute.
Yeah.
And here, now, I don't know if any of you down there in that great country where many of the greatest artists and actors and writers and everything in the arts come from Australia. I'm here to tell you. Now, I don't know if anybody there is familiar with Betty Page, but I knew her. I actually knew Betty Page. And we suppers and all that. There's Betty. Does anybody remember her?
Does anyone
Look her
remember
up.
Page?
They made a movie of her.
None of us.
American. Well, they're in Australia.
Yeah, I know, but you'd still hear of. Here's a drawing. Here's when I was going to sleep. This is what I used to look with the hair. That was when I was in the eccentric period. There you can see me drawing. And I took myself seriously, as many artists do. Here's another. Here's one of a cover that I did for a horror magazine. And when you do covers, you know, there's a perfect example. As you can see, design, reflected light. You know, there he is. Here, okay, here is where I lay out lights and darks. There. And that still makes a face. Dark, dark, dark. Any people, you can get somebody, and it's almost like drawing from the air, drawing an island. Make it accurately, that shape. Then make that accurately, that shape, and that shape, and that shape, and that shape. This is my dad's cane. The dad that started me out. This is the cane that I use. Here's a self-portrait of Mr. Nice Guy. Lots of different colors, as you can see, blues and so on. And you see, it doesn't matter the color as long as the value is right.
Yes.
And look at that, the little flicks of light that you have for the glasses. You don't have to put every edge in. Now I should have softened the edge of my head there a little. Something goes around. When something goes around like that, you soften the edge a bit. And I could soften it a bit here, you know, away from the. But look at how I just had nothing but fun, you know, doing that kind of thing. Let me see here.
Harley, I might turn over to the floor with everyone here to see if they've got any questions for you.
Absolutely. I have a couple of questions for myself.
Do you want theirs or yours first?
I'll do one question. We'll do back and forth.
Okay.
Here's one, not a question. And please do this. Draw from life 1/2 an hour each day from life. Okay, that's it. Now, question.
Question.
I'm waiting for one.
Waiting for a question. Anyone with questions?
I wonder if the three would move.
When you do your backgrounds, and I saw you were doing it while you were painting, and I noticed that you use quite bright colors in your backgrounds. How does that not distract from the figure?
That's a very good question. I, generally speaking, I'll make them relatively close to the center of interest. I know they're down here and that, but I would not put this down there, for instance, or down there, but relatively close to the center of interest. I know what you're saying. I think, okay, number one, design, number two, color, and once in a while, I just go for it, sort of thing. But in generally speaking, the strong, vibrant colors are most often up near the center of interest, up right there. Well, here's an example right here. I went down to Mexico, went to a bar, she posed for me. I mean, a restaurant. It was a restaurant kind of everything. And she posed for me. So it's very quick, but you can see where the strong colors, and this is okay here. Does that answer a little bit?
Yes, yes. Your turn now. What's your next question?
Oh, it's okay.
Can I ask a question?
Okay, what?
Are the three people that didn't know him still there?
Yeah. They're all still here. And we've actually gained a few more as the morning's gone on too. So
Oh,
not a few more people who know you, but a few more people.
okay, do not compete with other artists, compete with yourself. I don't, and if another artist wins an award, if we're at a show, I am absolutely 100% happy for that artist, as they are for me if I win something. You know, it's really, it's kind of, you're into yourself in a way that if other people do well, if I, like I say, if I'm at a show and my picture doesn't sell and they sell, I'm really happy for them, as they are with me. Now, if I never sold, okay, but I don't let things get me down. There's one thing I have never been in my life, and that's bored. I've been angst, I've been full of remorse or something, but I've never been bored. Somehow my mind keeps me, anyway, question.
Questions? Come on, people. Your opportunity. Oh, Petronella, have you got another one? Here we are.
So when you've got the dark side of the face, and you've got the light side of the face, when you've got the dark side of the face, do you try to make it so you get your lost edges? Do you put another dark next to it, or do you put when do you put dark next to dark so you get the lost? So I'm talking about background and your figure. When do you decide to keep dark next to dark, or when do you decide to have it stand out like the dark color with the white against the white of the face?
I kind of, that's a good question, and I kind of have a follow-up to it. I don't know if any of these, I don't know if any of these, okay, in most cases, the dark, when you're doing the dark of the face and shadow, and I don't know if this answers your question, you kind of get on me if it's not. Where the dark in the face goes against the light, as a, for instance, sometimes you make the darkest part of the dark that goes into the light, you make it a tad darker, like the edge of the nose that goes into the light, because there's always a light coming from another area that touches onto it. So if you follow what I'm saying, but here's an extremely important part. The details go into the light area. If most of the painting, if most of the artwork is the light of the face, then the details go in that. The dark of the face, yes, you do not make those details in the same fashion, you know, soften the edges slightly. And you can see with when somebody's sitting or with a photograph, I generally I don't make the lid of an eye or darker necessarily than the light side. If you're speaking of, do I make it a darker than it would be on the light side. Everything is different when you're doing a portrait. Where the light's coming from, it'll make the light a little bit lighter, eyebrow, for instance, and so on. And the eyebrow on the dark side will be a little bit darker in that area. But here's something. I went to an art class way back, and the teacher wasn't teaching anything. Then he finally somebody asked, how much detail do you put into the shadow side if the shadow takes up most of the face? If most of the face is in shadow, and then you see a little bit of light just on the forehead and cheek, but the rest isn't. He said, in that case, you put the details in the shadow and less detail in the light side, just a flush here and flush there. And that's the one thing I learned from this teacher, and I was happy. I was so happy to hear that officially said by an artist, that I couldn't have been. When the class was over, I shook his hand and said, "You've been a great help." So oftentimes when you get one good thing that you've learned, to me, that's like Bob Lockheed when he was I was doing the animals, and he told me that the shadows are the shapes and this and that. And he really almost ripped my art to pieces. By the way, he was saying, "You're putting shadows all too neat and tidy. Make them into shapes." And I thought, damn it, I'm not putting up with this. And so I decided I was going to go home the next day. Well, the next day, something happened to my brain, and I couldn't wait to get back and get more of this. And we became friends for life. In fact, he was one that talked me into doing workshops. He said, "Okay, Harley, you've put into your time, and you've learned and this and that. Now I want you to pass it on to others." And he told me, "You're going to do this for me." And I did. And God bless that guy. Anyway, next, if I didn't answer that question, please tell me and let me.
And we're going back.
Actually, no, it is something else I'm asking. If I look at your painting there, you've got a light behind the hair of that lady. So there is a ready light behind her hair. Now, if I look at a Rembrandt painting, if I take a Rembrandt, I often see that the hair gets lost in the background because it's so. My question is, when would you do that it gets lost and it gets lost, that is where the hair gets lost in the background? Or when do you decide to make that background lighter so you've got the shape stands out?
It all has to do with design. In the case of, for instance, here's a girl that modeled for us. Now, this one is not a good example now that I see it. One where the dark, yeah. No, that's a thing. Well, no, that one. That one, no, that where the dark goes into the dark of the. Well, that one for sure, yeah, but not this one either. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. That. Oh wait, here's one. This may kind of do it. I don't know. No.
No.
But
it's
a little,
Harley.
yeah. No, when Rembrandt did that, you take your choice. The choice is this: if he will keep it dark, he will keep the area going into the background dark if it works in with his design. If it, yeah, bring her, the girl.
Carolyn Monroe?
No, yeah. If it works in with the design, is this getting closer to where you're talking?
Yeah.
And if it works, and it soften the edge, of course, and if it works for the design, the worst thing I could do is to lighten that area there. That all has to be into the dark. But a touch of it here, the light is there. So it has to do with, like I say, the composition, how the composition works. Here you can see the skin going into shadow into the background softly. Now you see all that shape coming up there, that shape going down there. But it works with the anatomy. The side of her shape is not out there. We all know, because we've seen too many people, that the shape gets lost in there. And that's exactly what you call a lost edge, in the edge here. But the same with her hair. Now that could have been darker, but I wanted to show a bit of the shape of her hair. Is that getting closer to what we're looking at?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Harley. Yeah.
Oh, good.
And I think really the thing is, coming from that, is that there's no exact science. There's no you must do this and you must do that. It is your design and how you want to express it.
That very, yeah, exactly. And you've seen, well, you've seen my, once again, her eyes, you can almost tell how she's feeling. Even though you don't see her eyes, she has a certain very self-assured look. And these just happen. I don't know why, but they just all of a sudden happened, but they were perfect for this round sunglasses. Another question.
Has anyone else got some questions?
Oh,
Hang on.
I'll make a statement first.
Okay.
And I say, I've learned this myself. Every day, and you can see there, do something different, totally different. You can see the crazy stuff that I've done there from top to bottom.
Those are his commercial drawings, meaning during the commercial. Okay.
Okay, okay, question.
Yeah, here's a question.
We've heard, hello.
Hello.
We've heard about the importance of design and flow and really appreciate that. But at what stage of your design process are you thinking about the colors you're going to use?
Well, here's, for instance, a preliminary that I did for a piece. Just a preliminary. Often that's just working out the design. Oftentimes I'll let the color happen as it happens. I don't get too overcharged until I see things happening. And well, we've seen, we'll show that in a minute.
Yeah, I have it off.
I keep are you talking about colors? When do I let the colors happen? And I often let that happen as I'm working. And I'll let the subject always be the kind of the beginning, the feeling of the subject. If it's kind of a bright, cheery kind of a thing happening, I'll keep the colors coming. And quite often, I have enough pastels to last 100 years. Quite often, and this same thing happens with the piano and writing and everything else. My subconscious will grab a color and start going at it. And that's where your subconscious starts to get into the picture. As far as color, and I generally like to keep it relatively close to as far as bright colors. And there's exceptions where you do the bright colors
you know, depending. There's no strict thing that you have to go by, but in general feel, I let the colors happen. All of a sudden, I may put in that yellow that you saw in that young girl. I don't know if that helps.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Now, Harley, we're quickly running out of time, unfortunately. But what I have you got one last question you're asking yourself?
Well, I'm going here. Oh, well, and I have one very quick. Art keeps our minds young.
Yes.
And it does. I'm an old man, but my brain is 43. Try to be with serious artists a lot of the time. Photos can be deceptive. If you take a photograph of a person from the head, from the head, as the body goes down, it gets smaller in perspective. So make sure if you're doing a whole body to go to the middle of the body. Photos can be, everything is a good subject. Van Gogh did shoes, for instance. Everything is a good subject. I did that little lizard there. In the shadows, what happens in shadows? The sun hits and causes shadows. Well, it's the blue sky that puts in the cool. Like you especially see it in snow. When you see somebody walking in the snow and you see their shadow, it's very generally a cool shadow. That's because the blue sky is going into that shadow.
That's where you talk about the white, right?
Well, the white of the.
And it's really blue.
Well, it's blue. Yeah. And like I say, I've got stuff. The center of interest generally has a sharper contrast, edges near the center of interest. Colors are richer. There's more detail. Abstract goes out into the background. There's so many things in art. And Belinovsky did a self-portrait you may want to see.
Yes.
He's a very fan. I was invited him here tonight, but he didn't show up.
He didn't show up.
No.
I don't imagine that this. I think I know your answer, but I'll just ask it anyway. If you could wind back time, would you choose to do anything differently?
That's such a good one. I think that I would not have been. No, I suppose my eccentric period must have been. God, that's a good one. I probably have about 20. I wouldn't have drank. I quit drinking when I was 35. And I quit smoking when I was 35. And I quit swearing when I was 35. Well, while a word I can't. How I do something different? No, and I'll tell you why I hesitate with that, because our personalities are built upon all these eccentric moments from our past.
Yeah.
And if I had not gone through this and that and the other thing, I would be a different person sitting in front of you. And I don't mind the person I am. And but there are a few things, people that I disappointed, people that I think that would be the biggest thing of not doing something right. I can't think of exactly, but I'm sure that at this moment you're asking me. That's
yes. And I think we would all feel the same too. And we are the sum of our experiences, aren't we? And what we see of Harley Brown here in front of us has been amazing privilege, Harley.
I loved it.
Yes, yeah. Well, we've loved it too. Look, I just want to finish off. I've said I've written out a little thing as a vote of thanks for you, and I can say without a doubt, all of your books, but in particular the two books that I know so well, have influenced and guided so many of us on our artistic journey. So your teaching has reached beyond the classroom and it's reached across the world through your writings. In the eternal truth, you have simplified for us a host of principles of painting that for so long had not been addressed prior to your book. And so for that, we thank you. We thank you for the practical tips that you have always given us. Thank you for your honesty, your humor, and your passion that have been an intrinsic part of us pushing forward and enabling others to go on the journey that you've so enjoyed. Thank you for your steadfastness to your art, and particularly to pastel. You have enabled, inspired, and catapulted many of us into believing that we can do it. And so
you can.
Yes, and your beautiful artworks continue to bless and will always bless those who have the privilege of seeing them. Thank you, Harley Brown.
It's been, I can't tell you, it's a moment to remember. I feel that we're connected, and I'm sad to say goodbye.
Yes.
And cheers.
Yes.
You know.
Thank you so much, Harley. Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll catch you down the traps.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
No, one thing, if there's any questions that or anything like that, I'll try to, I'll write back anything that's, any little thing
Your
that to
website.
straighten out,
Email you on your website.
and the website and so on and so forth.
Okay. Yep. Alrighty, everyone, there's your invitation. Yep. Don't forget, if you haven't got a book, go out and see them at the front and buy a book. Thanks, Harley.
Thank you.